So at this point, we're ready to actually test the login functionality. And when someone tries to log in, they should expect a response with their user information, the JSON Web Token, and a database status of OK. So I ran the application earlier, and I ran into a very bizarre issue. And that's because if you go into the configuration, so in the security configuration, this authentication manager has the same name as this authentication manager here, and that was causing a very bizarre issue. So please go back, and then in this authentication manager, since it's returning a bean, I'll just rename it to authentication manager bean, okay, so that this name can be different from the name that we have here. So once you have that set up, then we can go ahead and start this application and then test it. Now, I'm not gonna run it in a normal mode. I'm gonna run in debug mode so that we can step through all of those just to make sure that the system is behaving exactly the way that we're expecting it to. So I'm gonna click on this bug icon here to start in debug mode. And then I'm gonna put a breakpoint right here. So I'm gonna let the application come up, and then we're gonna go ahead and test it. So the application is up. As you can see, we're up and running in on 8081. So I'm gonna bring back the Postman so that we can use as our client. So here I'm gonna create a new request, so localhost, and it's gonna be 8081, and we want to go to user and then login. So we're gonna send a post request. Let's go back here real quick. As you can see, we're expecting a request body with the user, and we only need the username and the password. So we have to pass in the username and the password. So let's go into the body, and that's gonna be raw as JSON. And then in here, we're gonna pass in the username and the password. So we're gonna do username, and this is going to be John. If you remember, if we go back to the database, you can see when we created this user, their username right here is actually John. We don't know the password because this password is not the actual password that they put in. That's the hash password. So we need to have the original password in order to be able to pass it in here. So we're gonna set the password, and we're gonna set this to the actual password that they passed in when they were, well, they didn't pass it in. We created it for them and on the fly. And I hope you save this. I have mine saved right here. I put mine in this file when I created the user. So wherever you have yours, just go ahead and grab that password. And if you don't have it, you can just create another user and then make sure you get the password in the log. So I'm gonna pass this password in here. And in the future, what we're going to do is whenever someone creates an account with the application, we're gonna send them an email with the actual password. So John would receive an email, and the email that they provided with this password right here. We just don't have this functionality yet. So I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger, and we're ready to send the request. So I'm gonna bring this up a little bit so that we can see the response when it comes in, because we're gonna need to check the response as well. So let's go ahead and send that request, and let's take a look at the application. So here, as you can see, we have the user, and we can take a look at the user. Like, that's the request, this one. As you can see, it's at the same level as this. So it's not actually this user here or any other user, it's the user in the request here. So we can take a look. You can see we have the username and the actual password. Everything else is null. So we're just gonna step in once, and it's gonna authenticate the user. So that can take a few seconds. Usually it doesn't take that long unless we're not debugging. So when you're debugging, it takes a little bit more time because it stops, and then you have to relaunch everything. So as you can see, the authentication was successful. And how do I know that? Because it passed this first line on line 40, right? And we can look here to see what happened here. Say, okay, so after that we can continue stepping. So let's go into the next one, and in here we should have a login user. And as you can see, here's the login user, and here's all the information that we need for that login user. and we can see how their last login date and last login display date is being set as well. And now we're gonna create the header with the token in it. So step 1, now we have the user principal. So let's take a look at that, and I'm gonna collapse this, and here's the user principal. As you can see, that's the user principal with all the information, all the roles and authorities. I'm gonna expand this. Okay, so here we should, if we step over this line 43, we should get the JSON Web Token. Or if you want, we can step into it just so we can take a look to see how this is being created. So I'm going to click on this one, which is step into. So we're going to step into this method right here. And then I'm going to step once to go on line 55. And it's not going to be the ad. So here you can see we have the headers. So if we take a look at the headers, we have the JWT token headers, and we can look at the value as well. As you can see, size 1, we have something in there. So here's the actual token that gets generated. Okay, that's the actual token. So I'm gonna step over this, and then we're gonna go back up to this line on line 43, and then step over. Now we're sending the response back, and then I'm gonna let this continue. Now if we go back, we should see the user information because we're sending back in the request body. And if we go in the headers, we should see the JWT token header, and here's the value for that header. Okay, so in the future, whenever we need to send subsequent requests, we'll have to pass this header as the authorization header, and then we'll verify from there. So since this is the first time that we actually generated this custom header, as you can see here, it says custom header because we created this header. We can take a look at this to verify that it's actually correct, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this whole token, and then I'm gonna go over to JWT.io. Okay, so if you go into JWT.io, you should be able to verify this token. And here I'm gonna remove this token, and then I'm gonna paste ours. Okay, so if you paste ours, you can see the type is JWT. Here's our signature encryption, and here's all the information about that user. So the subject, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. So the subject, as you can see here, it's John, and we have the issuer, which is the name of our company, in that case Get Raise. And then we have the expiration, as you can see here, you can see it's on the 24th. So that's 5 days from now, because this is the 19. And then we have when it was issued. So it was issued today, right now at 12:46. Now it's 48, so it's been 2 minutes. And then we have the authorities, which is user read. So I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. If you go back, is down, you can see that it says that the signature is not verified, right? So if we put in the secret that we created here, this is gonna verify the signature. So if we go back into the app, and let's minimize this because we don't need this anymore. I'm gonna remove the breakpoint, and let's go into the properties file, and let's copy this whole string, and I'm gonna copy it, and then I'm gonna paste it in here as our secret. Once I do that, you'll see now it says signature verified. Okay, so this is a legitimate JSON Web Token, like legit. So that's what that's the standard in this industry, and that's what a lot of the other companies are using. So the skills that you're learning, they're very valuable to you. So again, here's all the information. We verify our signature, so our token is correct. So at this point, we know that this login is actually working, and we also return all the user information because we're gonna need to take that information and then forward the user onto the next page whenever we actually building the front-end application. And we will not be returning this password, and I'm gonna show you how to make this password write only and not read only, because it doesn't make sense that we're sending all this information back to the user, including the password, because that's a security vulnerability. So I'll show you how to do that in some future lectures. So we know that the login is working now, and if we go back, So all of this is working. We can debug it more, but you can go ahead and do that yourself just so you can see how this is stepping through this. And I'll see you in the next lecture.